ਥੈਲੇਸੀਮੀਆ ਪੇਸ਼ੈਂਟਸ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸਟੈਮ ਸੈਲ ਡੋਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਉਹਦੀਆਂ ਰਜਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਟੈਮ ਸੈਲ ਡੋਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਥੈਲੇਸੀਮੀਆ ਪੇਸ਼ੈਂਟਸ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੈਚ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਕ੍ਰਿਟੀਕਲੀ ਫਾਊਂਡ ਕਰਨੇ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਰੇਅਰ ਚਾਂਸਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਮੈਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋ ਸਕੇ। ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਮੈਡਮ ਸਿੰਮੀ ਐਂਡ ਮੈਡਮ ਜਸਲੀਨ ਗਰਚਾ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਨੇ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਣਗੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਰਨੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਰਹੀ, ਕਿਉਂ ਇਸ ਫਾਊਂਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਖੜਾ ਕੀਤਾ, ਇਹ ਰਜਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ कह लो उन्होंने लाइफ किसी होर पासे सीगी, वो अपनी लाइफ कह लो होर पासे एस्टैबलिश कर चुके सी, पर उन्होंने अपनी जिंदगी नूं टर्न करके इधर क्यों लैके आए, की वजह बनी ते जिहड़ी अर्जनवीर फाउंडेशन आ वो किस तरह काम करदी आ। सो उस तो पहला मैं साडे डीन अकैडमिक नितिन बिबरा जी एंड सरप्रीत सर साडे रजिस्ट्रार, मैं उन्होंने बहुत धन्यवाद करदी हाँ कि उन्होंने अपने कीमती समय चों समा कढ़िया और साडे विचकार आए। तो मैं बेनती करूँगी मैडम सिमी सिंह नूं कि वह मंच ते आउण ते अपना जिहड़ा एक्सपीरियंस हैगा वो साडे नाल शेयर करन।
सत श्री अकाल। ते मैं सब तो पहले तो सब नूं तुहाडे तो माफ़ी मंगना चाहांगी कि असी तुहानूं सब नूं इन्ना वेट कराया तो डिले हो गया प्रोग्राम। थोड़ा जिहा सानूं मजबूरी सी कि असी कल नहीं दिल्लीओं निकल सके, सो अज सवेरे निकले। सो आई एम रियली अपोलोजेटिक अबाउट दैट, सिंसियरली feel bad that I kept you all waiting for so long. And I'm very honored that I've been invited here today to such a prestigious university, and it really makes me feel very humbled when you all take the time out to come and listen to us and help us with this cause. It's a much needed cause, and we're going to talk to you about it and give you some more information about it, because sadly there's very little awareness and knowledge that people have. It's only when actually you come into the problem that you start realizing how difficult it can be. Of course, Arjanveer Foundation was established in memory of my older son Arjun, who we lost in 2012 to blood cancer. And the problem was that we were not able to find a match for his stem cell transplant in time. And 10 years ago, in India, there was really no facility. We will talk about it, but I'm going to start with a little anecdote. This is a this is a true life anecdote, and it has so much meaning and depth. So I would like to just read that out to you, and then we'll continue with what we are here to talk about. So this is an anecdote of a very, very, very well-known and I would say a very a true sportsman, but more than even a true sportsman, an absolute true human being, and it really makes you believe that this is what humanity is all about. So I'm reading this out. Remember this Kenyan runner, Abel Mutel, who was just a few feet from the finish line, but became confused with the signage and stopped just short of the finish line, thinking he had completed the race. A Spanish runner, Ivan Fernandez, who was running right behind him, realizing what was happening, started shouting at the Kenyan to continue running. Mutai didn't understand Spanish and didn't understand what the Spanish runner was saying to him. Realizing this, the Spanish runner, Ivan, pushed Mutai across the finish line and made him win the race. So after the race, the journalist asked Ivan, "Why did you do that?" Ivan replied, "My dream is that someday we can have a kind of community life where we push and help each other to win." The journalist insisted, "But why did you let the Kenyan win?" Ivan replied, "I didn't let him win. He was winning in any case. The race, the race was his." The journalist insisted and again asked, "But you could have won, Ivan." Ivan looked at him and replied, "But what would be the meaning of that victory? What would be the honor in that medal? What would my mother have thought of me? Values are passed from generation to generation." So, the crux of the Arjun Veer Foundation is to meet and talk to people like you, motivate you all to become givers. Now, in India, shockingly today, every 5 minutes, somebody is detected with a blood cancer. And we are talking only of blood cancer. There are 140 other blood disorders that are there as well. And all these patients who have these diseases are waiting for a stem cell transplant. And how do we help them? By donating our stem cells. It's a very simple procedure and nobody knows of it. I remember 40 years ago when I joined Delhi University, donating blood had just become a norm and people were just beginning to hold blood camps of hospitals on campuses and things. But it was in the early 80s and there was a lot of fear also because one had started hearing stories of HIV spreading. And so one used to be very, very confused whether it was safe to donate blood, not donate blood, should one donate blood, how should one go about it, how do you make sure that the needles are clean. But today, after 40 years, you see that donating blood has become an everyday affair. Where you'll drive through Ludhiana and you'll see banners put up in various places, blood donation camp organized by Rotary Club, blood donation camp organized by so-and-so university. It's become an everyday thing. So everything takes time to start off, and only with awareness are we able to build it to such a level where it becomes a normal. It becomes a normal for everybody. Today, I don't think anybody thinks if there's a blood donation camp, most of us would very happily go and donate blood. So similarly, our endeavor is that in the future, in India, with the population of 1.3 billion plus people, we don't have a large enough stem cell donor registry. So now, how do we work on that? What are the procedures involved? How do we become a stem cell donor? What are stem cells? These are things that nobody really understands yet. So this is what we are here to explain to you. How to become a donor, why it is important that we become donors, how can we bring about awareness, how can we spread this awareness. So this is what our motive is. So the Arjun Veer Foundation, like I told you, was set up in my son's memory. He was a 26-year-old, raring to go in life, but God had other plans. And at the age of 24, he was detected with a blood cancer. Most of you would think that, yes, blood cancer means it's a full stop. But today, science has taken us to a stage and a point where there are treatments available, there are cures available. We just need to go to the right place. We need to know what we have to do. So that's what we are here to come and share with you. Stem cells are the most important cells of our bodies. Every part of our body is important. Somebody will say the heart is, the liver is, every part is. But what are the stem cells? So the stem cells are the cells from where everything starts in our body. They are found in our bones, and collectively they form the bone marrow. And bone marrow is responsible for making all the blood in our body. So when we have, blood has different components. You have RBCs, the red blood cells, you have the WBCs, the white blood cells, which control our immune systems. We have the platelets, we have the plasma. So all these are various components of the blood. And the stem cell is where all this is produced from. So the stem cells are considered the smartest cells in our body, and they are responsible for keeping the balance of everything in our body. And they are so smart that they can make stem blood as per our requirement. So if there's a person who has a kidney problem, for example, the stem cells will be creating the WBCs in such a way that they will be helping, make the kidney functions better to fight whatever disease or infection or whatever there is in the kidneys. So stem cells are an extremely, extremely important part of our body. And sadly, when a person who has a blood disorder is detected with a blood disorder, their stem cells are malfunctioning. So how will they manage to keep the balance in their bodies? So the point is, today science is able to replace these stem cells. So it all sounds very simple that, stem cells खराब हो गए, उन्हां नू change कर देने आ. But change किस तरह करिए और match किस तरह करिए? So when blood group होंदा है, there are 8 blood groups. So if I'm a B positive and I need blood today, I'm sure there'll be at least 5 people in this room who will have B positive blood group. But how do we find a matching stem cell? Because the stem cell is not matched with the blood group. The stem cell has a very specific matching system. So I'm sure all of you are aware of what our DNAs are. Each one has a very specific DNA. And a part of that DNA is also called HLA, which is the human leukocyte antigen. Jasleen will explain everything in detail with the presentation so that you all understand better. So now we have to match the HLA. So what we have to do is, we are going to come and talk to people like you and request you all to become voluntary donors. We will ask you to sign up, and then we will take a swab from inside your mouth. And it's a totally painless procedure, and that swab will then go for a test which is called the Hla typing test. And the Hla typing will be then put into a data bank. And as and when, if you're found to be a match to a patient, that's when you will come forward and donate your stem cells. The procedure for donating is also not very difficult. I'm not going to, because Jasleen's going to explain everything in detail, so there's no point me going into that part of it. So this whole procedure is a 2-part thing, where one, you have to be convinced that yes, I want to be a part of this cause, I want to help save somebody's life, and I will become a voluntary stem cell donor. To become a voluntary stem cell donor is the easiest thing. You just sign up, give us a swab, your HLA typing will be put into the World Data Bank, and from there on, it will stay there till the age you turn 60. So you can be a donor right from the age of 18 till you turn 60. And once you turn 60, it becomes a little complicated. They will take you off the voluntary registration list. Once you're on that registry, then you have to stay motivated enough that because you might get a call within a few months after you've registered, you might get a call even 10 years after you've registered, or you might get a call when you're 59 and you may have forgotten that you had actually signed up for this. So this is something that, if you join the cause, we want you to be really motivated about it, because you can save a life. Now, these days, organ donation has become, again, it's picked up and people have become aware of it, and more people are signing up for organ donation. But organ donation will only happen after you have gone. Here, you will be given the chance to save a life within your lifetime. And that, I think, is a huge motivation by itself. Can you imagine that a stem cell, a small little cell from your body, can save somebody's life? Had Arjun found a match in time in 2012, maybe he would have been sitting here amongst us talking about it. But in 2012 in India, there was absolutely hardly any body who was working in this field. There were a total of 12,000 registered donors in the whole country. And we had the fortune, we could take him overseas, we could find a match for him, but it was too late by then. There are others who can't even do that. So I would really want that, people understand this and contribute towards this cause in whichever way, whether they become voluntary donors to try and save somebody's life, whether there are people like Sargi who are, initiating others to join in and help the cause. You can do so many things, and it doesn't take much. It's just a question of being motivated and helping. I mean, here was this Spanish runner. He could have won the gold medal at the World Athletic Championship, but he still chose to let the better man win. So as human beings, I think this is what God really made us as. We were supposed to live in harmony, holding each other's hands and taking society forward. But somewhere along the line, we get so embroiled in the rat race of today that we forget to hold hands. We all decide we need to run independently. And that is where I think we as a human race are going wrong. So I think every now and then we need to stop, take a deep breath, and remember that we need to hold each other's hands in life. Hold each other's hands in life to move forward as a race. There's another anecdote which I love to share with everybody. So a few years ago, my husband and I were traveling in the US, and we were in San Francisco driving up to Seattle. So on the way, we've decided we would stop at the Redwood Forests. Now the Redwood Forests are probably one of the oldest surviving forests in the world. And they're found along the coast, along the west coast in Northern California. And the trees of the redwood forests, they grow to heights of 300 feet. And that's unimaginable. 300 feet tall trees. It's a spectacular sight. So we had a guide, we were walking around, we were really admiring the beauty and the nature and, having such a wonderful talk with the naturalist. And so I asked him, I said, it's amazing how these trees, and some of these trees which are 300 feet tall could be 2,500 years old. They've been there for 2,500 years. So I said, on the west coast of California, you have so many earthquakes, the wind factors are so high, there's storms. How do these trees survive? I mean, they must be having really deep roots. So he stopped and he smiled and he looked at me and he said, ma'am, their roots do not even go a few meters deep. I said, I don't believe that. How can a 300-foot tall tree not have deep roots, few meters deep roots? How can that be? He says the interesting thing about these trees is that the roots spread out sideways and they keep getting entangled with the other roots. They keep holding on and they form these clusters. And the roots are so well, they are so well entangled. Well, entangled is not the right word, but they're holding on to each other so tight that that nothing happens to these trees. And it really hit me and struck me. I said, my God, that is what society was meant to be, our human society. We were supposed to grow, hold each other, and keep each other firmly held together and not get fragmented, on any basis, which unfortunately is what is happening worldwide today. But the story of these trees really, really caught me. And it even to date, it amazes me that how can those trees, such tall trees, right on the coast where there's such high wind velocities, manage with just having roots not that deep. So with that, I think I'll hand over to Jasleen so that she can explain in detail about how the stem cells work, what the whole procedure is, and then we'll be open to questions and we'll be very happy to answer anybody's questions so that there's clarity. Thank you so much once again. Thank you.
Good morning. Perhaps we are into good afternoon. You've met Arjun's mama. He was a fantastic guy. I've never had a chance to meet him. I hope with this foundation we're trying to work around will touch his vision or his dreams he had to make something available in India, which at that time was very rare. I hope it's okay. Je speed cut karni hai to main das diyo. Yeah, it's good? Great. Arjun's picture you've seen, he wanted to be a software developer, a game maker, right, Auntie? Yeah, and while he was still being treated, he wanted to create a game where there will be two, a good man and a bad man fighting each other and the good spirit would win over. So this is the spirit of this organization, that we're trying to see where the wrong thing is and trying to help other people to get out of that problems which Arjun had and so many other people had, and they didn't have a chance to make through it. So the Arjun Veer Foundation is holding a vision to help everybody we can, possibly. We're trying to focus on the younger kids where their academic schedules and their education is at a question mark because they're being treated for such a long time in hospitals. With blood cancers, you will see all other blood disorders. They have to stay in hospitals like for 6 months, 8 months continuously when they're going through their chemos or other therapies. After a bone marrow transplant or a stem cell transplant, there is a time lapse of first 100 days that they have to be in the hospital. And then for next 6 months, they have to be very carefully monitored. So, kids lose out on their education. We're trying to help on that side as well. And one of the very major blood disorders we are trying to see that we can help is thalassemia major, which has become very, I would say, it's the frequency is very high and the numbers are very high in northern India. And thalassemia patients have to go through a blood transfusion every fortnight and sometimes 3 weeks. So once in a month, at least, they have to go through a blood transfusion, which is again taking a toll on their education, on their personal lives, on their family lives as well. But for all these problems, the blood cancers, blood disorders, thalassemia is one of them. The only solution is a stem cell transplant, and that's the permanent one. So we're here to take you through one by one how it works and what we're doing towards it. We are in India right now, every 5 minutes, one patient is detected with blood cancer. And this is one only blood cancer we're talking about, but there are other diseases, thalassemia. Thalassemia is where you need blood transfusion once a month at least. There's sickle cell disease, there's aplastic anemia, and there are when we made this presentation, there was 70 other types of blood disorders, but now, currently we are at 140 different types of blood disorders, which can be treated with the stem cell transplant. And they could be genetic, they could be, later on diagnosed in life. What is a stem cell? Simyanti told you very finely what it is. It's the building block. This is where it all starts from. This will help you, stem cell will help make all other organs work. The one particular type we are trying to tell you here is which works towards producing blood and components. So stem cells are I would call it very famously a mother cell, because this is creating other things and this is nourishing life and our body. So these stem cells collect together and make a tissue called bone marrow. Bone marrow is, if you all know, or if not, is a fluid which is inside the backbone. It lives inside the backbone, and this is then responsible to make all our blood components like red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets and everything else. But we know that stem cells are responsible for everything else as well. But one particular one we're talking about here is the creation of bone marrow by stem cells, and then from bone marrow all the blood components are formed. We're clear on that? Please say yes. Yes. Thank you. Now this bone marrow would then understand what body needs. If we need more red blood cells, it would create more red blood cells. If the platelets are lesser, it would create more platelets. So understanding what is the requirement of the body, the bone marrow functions. If there is a defect in the bone marrow, this would either underproduce something, overproduce something, or may not produce one of the components at all. So overproduction of RBCs could be one type of blood disorders. Underproduction of platelets is aplastic anemia. Underproduction of red blood cells is thalassemia. And overproduction of any type of cells is obviously one of the blood cancers. Now we know there is a defect. How to fix it? Very, very generally, if we have, I have this pointer, if it's not working, I'll change the battery. Mostly it would be the battery replacement. Similarly here, when we change the stem cells of a person, if it's wrong, it would then create obviously a bone marrow correctly, and the bone marrow will then work on absolutely normal. So this is the main procedure of stem cell transplant. The problem becomes is when we don't get the matches. So we know there is a problem, we know how to fix it, but we can't find the new battery. This is where the Arjun Way Foundation comes in place, is we're trying to motivate the healthy population, the educated lot who can take this message forward. Sargi is our donor already, and she has very sweetly, very, I would say we are honored that she's taken this forward and she's brought us to the university. We need to take this message forward that the batteries cannot be bought. These stem cells cannot be bought from anywhere. This has to come from a human. This has to be given to a human for them to get treated perfectly well. Now, I said there are no matches found. I'll take you back. When Arjun was being treated, we tested, we have Jay amongst us. Jay is Arjun's younger brother. Arjun and Jay's Hla typing, stem cells didn't match. So in the family itself, there are only 25% chances that your sibling would be a match. Usually if I need blood, I think somebody from the family would be a match. One of you would be a match, because finding same blood group is very common, but finding matching stem cells is 1 in a million probability. Say out of you 100 here, somebody would become my blood donor if I need it. I'm A positive. But if I need stem cells for some reason, I don't think one of you would be a donor, because the chances are 1 in a million. We need a million people to be tested and reported. Only then we'll be able to understand if their HLA typing matches mine or not. This is where the problem is, and that's what we're trying to sort out. I would take this. Yeah, so what you can do is to make this easier. If we create this pool, which is more than a million, the probability is obviously higher for a person to find. In India, we right now have only 500,000 donors. This is all registries all together. The ones working in Chennai, Bangalore, we are working in Northern India, the ones working in Mumbai. We have only 500,000 donors for 1.3 billion population. So what we need is more people to come and join the registry so that we can find the matches quicker and get the treatments done quicker. All it takes is, this is a form you fill. These are the basic details we need: your name, date of birth, your ethnicity, phone numbers, addresses, emails, so that later on when you become a match, we can contact you. And what it takes is a cheek swab. I brought a swab for you guys. This looks like an elongated version of an earbud. Yes? What we do is we're going to rub this, like in the picture you see, on the membrane of the cheek. This would collect your DNA, and we are going to test your HLA from it. This is what an HLA typing looks like. It's a combination of numbers. This is mine, by the way. If I need a match, I'll have to have one person's HLA typing to be exactly the same. It's a very scientific report. When all these variables and combinations are matching, only then one of you would become my donor. So for 1 in a million, this is what we're looking for, and it's very rare. This then gets stored into our database, in the Arjun Wave Foundation database, and like us, there are, I'll make you understand where does this go. HLA typing is saved into one of our databases. Like us, there are 85 registries around the world. India has 4. Every country has their own registries. US has 4, UK has 3, German has 2. So every country has their own registries, and we all have a headquarter in Netherlands. It's called World Marrow Donors Association. This is an NGO. We send our database. So my HLA typing would only go with these numbers and a code, a very specific code. Any information you give us here on this form will remain confidential with us only. So you're given a code, say AVM 000501, and that is 501's HLA typing. That goes into worldwide database under WMDA. This database keeps all 85 registries database. We have over 35 million donors. Am I correct? Yeah, 35 million donors all over the world, which are available to be searched at any moment when we are approached by a transplant center to run a search for a patient. So you go as a code with these numbers, only then you're circulating in the worldwide database for up until you're 60 years of age. So I got registered myself 5 years ago. I'm yet to be a donor. I'm waiting for that phone call either from overseas or from even one of our transplant centers, that when I become a match, I would donate. I haven't donated yet, but we've done series of donations via our donors. Once this is there and you are a match, this is what happens. It's a very simple procedure. Has anybody ever donated blood here? Please raise your hands. Great. And those who haven't raised their hands, please start donating blood. It's always good to have new blood cells formed in the body. once you do become a match, we will contact you because we will have all your details which you gave us. So we would request you to give us 2 numbers and 2 emails possibly, and your permanent address, so that we can get back to you whenever you become a match. It may happen in 2 months' time, it may happen in 5 months' time, it may happen 10 years later or 20 years later, because I'm waiting for my turn for last 5 years as well. We will then contact you. From that point onwards, you will go through a complete health check after you agree to become a donor. Complete health check means everything from your hair to the toes. All blood tests would be run, a physical health check would be done. Only then you will pass that eligibility criteria of donating stem cells. Stem cell donation looks like that. There are 2 pricks on the lady's arm, one in the left, one in the right. Blood comes out of the right arm, is going into a machine. No, sorry, it's coming from the left arm there in the picture. It goes into a machine, and machine has a software which is only going to pick the stem cells from the body, from the blood, and rest of the blood's given back to your body. So there's no blood loss. You're only giving your stem cells. And which stem cells are you giving? Say you have 1 million, I'll make it small. Say you have 100 stem cells in your body. Before this procedure happens and you agree to become a donor, you are given a GCSF therapy. GCSF is colony stimulation factor. This is an injection which looks like insulin injection. Has anybody seen an insulin injection? It's a very small prick, and it goes into your top skin. Okay, G. So this is given for 5 days prior to your donation. We are on 12th today. Say your donation's on 20th of February, which is when the elections are in Punjab. We'll take it for 21st. Let's not do it on the election day. Say your donation is on the 21st of February. You will be given your GCSF injections from 16th onwards. 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th and 20th, you'll get 5 injections. On the day of your 5th injection in the morning, we'll take you to a local facility, a local hospital where this machine is available, which is similar to where the platelet donation is taken from. So your nearest center would be a DMC or CMC in Ludhiana. I'm not sure if Mullapur Chowkiman has this machine. So this has to go by international standards, that the hospital has to be a certified hospital and they have to have a JCI and everything. Once we go to the hospital, you'll be on the hospital bed for like 4 or 5 hours, maximum 7 hours. And this is what's going to happen, 2 pricks, left and right. You can have your friends over, your family is with you. You can watch a movie, you can listen to songs, you can talk to us. We'll be more than happy to do that. All you have to do is sit there and wait for the bag of stem cells to be ready. And at the end of the donation, we run a CD34 test, which tells us how much cells are there now in that pack. And that's it. You go back home. Now, what this injection does is, say you have 100 stem cells, it's going to, once you're pricked, it's going to stimulate at least 10% of your stem cells to catalyze the production. So for next 5 days, those 10% of cells which were touched by this colony stimulation factor are going to multiply themselves and become 200, maybe 300. And on the 5th day, we're going to extract those extra cells. So your blood loss is nothing. Your stem cell loss is nothing at all. The only discomfort you may get is possibly a headache or a small fever or a body breaking, which I think all of us have had through this corona period. It's just normal. Body breaking, headache, fever in front of saving a life is a very small thing, and I'm sure we all can bear it. That's about it. This is how you donate stem cells, and this is how easy it gets. We're going to do a health check after 3 months from that donation, just to clear you up for everything, and that's about it. A pack of that stem cells, the yellow one there, is going to save a life of a person who has no other hope, who has no other donor in the world, who has no other chance of surviving. So you are going to become a lifesaver and a life giver. I'd say only a mother can give life, but here is your chance. everybody's chance to give a life. Only 25% donors would show those side effects which I mentioned. And the recovery is because obviously you didn't donate your own stem cells, these were the reproduced ones. We'd increase the quantity. And this is normal to have a fever and headache, because when there is something abnormal happening in your body reacts to it in general. And if there is a reaction, that means it's good. Your systems are working absolutely fine. So we take it as a positive sign if the GCSF is working and you do have some body breaking and fever. For India, 1.3 billion plus population today, we have more than 40,000 people losing their lives every year. I mean, this figure obviously has gone up now. We can save all those people, all those precious lives. Why precious? In 1.3 billion, you would say we have enough population. We are nuclear families. I only have one brother and he's only got one sister. Jay only had one brother. You probably only have one brother or a sister. So the number of family members are very small. The lives are very, very precious. The family members are very, very precious. And because we have nuclear families, there are lesser chances of us finding matches at home. My dad has 4 brothers. In case he needs stem cells tomorrow, he would have better chances than I have because I only have one sibling. So we need to make sure, like Auntie very specifically said, we need to join together our efforts, stay there with each other, and save each other from falling down, from earthquakes, from blood cancers, just like redwood trees. How we're working is we do, well, pandemic, Corona has halted everything. It did halt all of our plans as well. We're trying to increase number of donors. We're trying to increase the awareness. Obviously, in last 2 years, we've literally had no camps, physical camps, other than having some Zoom conferences with university students and doctors. We're trying to increase the registry, and by the virtue of our population, 1.3 billion, even if you take out under 18s and over 60s away, we could, as India, as a country, can become the largest registry in the world. And we could cater to everybody so that every time we need a donor, we find matches in Germany a lot. Yesterday we'd run a search, we found a match in Germany, we found a match in US. So every time we find a donor, we have to, take a katora bheek mangne ke liye jana padta hai to US, to Germany, to some other countries. Why are we begging other people when we have such large population ourselves? We have such young population, such healthy population ourselves. So we need to make sure that we are self-sustainable as a country. We save our own people and we're saving families altogether. We require your cooperation. Thank you, Sergey, once again. We need this to go into universities, colleges, corporations, everywhere you can talk about. And please promise me, everybody available in this room today, that you will talk about this to 10 other people. You're all, I'm sure, the faculty members. You would talk to your students. You would tell them what it is and how it works and how easy it is. Now, most of your students would go, 50% would go overseas after their first degrees or second degrees. If they move their country, all they have to do is give us their permanent addresses. They could be enrolled into the other registry where they move to. So it's not that once you become a donor here, you'll have to become a donor there. This database can be moved at a donor's request. And now I finish. This one's a 34-year-old, young man, doing absolutely fine in his career, in his life, got a kid. We can't find a match for him. He's in the US. And everybody has to eventually come down to your roots to find a match, because all the doctors say, even if you're in US, Canada, or UK, go back to your country, find where you belong to, because finding matches in your own ethnicity has a larger chance. This young kid got some rare genetic disorder and we can't find a match. Like this, we have right now we'd run 10 searches in last 2 days, Simianti knows, out of which only 2 people had matches, another 8 didn't. And we don't know what to do about it. And every time when you run a search, click that button, and there is no search found, no match found, it is a very disheartening scene for people like us who are trying to do work, and for the families when we call them back saying there is no donor, and they don't know what to do, because we literally don't know what to do apart from the fact that we come together, make this I think priority so that we can save each other. So be the change and be someone's hero. Be someone's DNA is our tagline, because when you do have a stem cell transplant done, you live on double DNA. One is your own, and then you get a DNA from the donor. That's why we say be someone's DNA and save a life. Once the stem cells are extracted, the fresh cells would live for 48 hours. So we try to make sure the stem cells are transported to wherever the patient is within 48 hours. But due to corona, now we've started cryopreserving the cells and then transporting it to the hospitals because the flights were down. We've recently transported some cells from Thailand, and it was supposed to arrive on 9th of December, but it did on 11th because of the flight schedule changes. So we don't start preparing the patient earlier now. It used to be, say, the donations on 21st, the transplant was on 22nd of February. So within that time span of 24 hours, we can deliver anywhere in India or even outside India. But now we don't start preparing the patient till we receive the stem cells due to the corona conditions and the flights and everything. But the shelf life of the cryopreserved stem cells is years and years, not just 48 hours. But we'd like to have a transplant done with the fresh cells.
So to minimum loss of these cells.
That's right. And potency and quality, obviously.
And whether Ajay Foundation has any collaboration with any other national, international foundation?
Yes, so we are an international NGO.
Collaboration.
Collaborations is with all the other registries in India.
No, any other, because I'm a Rotarian from myself.
We did. I think Simianti would tell you, we've tried contacting Rotary Club. In Amritsar, we do have a collaboration. Please come. Simianti is going to come and answer that. Please be ready with other questions. We'll answer the collaboration one here.
So we have been working with Rotary clubs in Delhi, in Amritsar.
Please come to the podium.
And I think in Delhi, in Amritsar, and in fact, I think February of 2020, I had a talk in Delhi with the Rotary Club.
South Asia office?
No, one of the
locals.
It was I think it was the Central Delhi Rotary Club.
So then I would advise, ma'am, being a Rotarian, Rotary is having a pan-international trade, and not a single penny is being taken from the government.
Right.
Every Rotarian is incurring all the money from his own pocket.
Yeah.
So there is a district
Yes.
configuration.
Yeah.
So right now, if we are in Ludhiana, so it comes under the jurisdiction of 3070.
Right.
I belongs to Rockford, that becomes the district 3080.
Right.
And the 3080 jurisdiction consists of 5 states,
Mm-hmm.
from Nangal to Mansouri.
Right.
So we have 100 clubs in our district and almost 72,000 Rotarians. So I will advise, I can be a connect, because we do wonderful
I absolutely
like
agree
the
with
रोको कैंसर, ये ब्लड डोनेशन कैंप हम तो पता नहीं कितने साल में हो जाते हैं. लास्ट ईयर हमारा टारगेट जो है वो 10 लाख यूनिट का था, एंड हमारे रोटेरियंस ने कैंप्स लगा के 12,70,000 यूनिट जो है वो डोनेट कर दिए. एंड एक स्टेज ऐसी आई थी जब पीजीआई के पास और रोटरी का एक ब्लड डोनेशन कैंप है, बैंक है चंडीगढ़ में, उनके पास जगह नहीं थी. सो वी डोनेटेड इट टू दी अदर राजस्थान एंड अदर डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स. So I think this Ajay Veer Foundation is doing a wonderful job. लेकिन जो कम चीज़ है उसको मुझे लगता है रोटरी जैसी फाउंडेशन जो है
बिल्कुल.
And every year with the Rotary year it starts from July to June.
I see.
So next year's is going, and every district governor, because the head of the district is a district governor. At the club level it's the president.
Right.
And every Rotary assignment is only for 1 year.
Right.
Only for 1 year. So I can connect you with the coming district governor and to the 3070.
That would be nice.
What will be happening then? They can make it as a signature project for their year of tenure.
That's right.
So मुझे लगता है एक बार जो है
No,
consent हो जाए,
Yeah.
consent हो जाए,
definitely.
then testing हो
Definitely.
जाए.
Jasleen,
We'll take your contacts.
We'll take your contact. We'll definitely.
I will be
would-
the happiest person.
Thank you.
That's very kind.
Thank you so much. Stay here. Any other questions, please?
Ma'am, what is the process of registration? Like if I want to get myself registered, what I need to do for that?
So we brought in the forms today for you. We knew we'd definitely get some people.
What
And
is testing? Okay.
okay, so we'll take your swabs. We have enough swabs with us. This is then just to let you know the procedure. Once we take your swab, this goes to a lab in the US, which the foundation pays for. We beg and borrow and we pay for it. And then the report is given in like 3 to 4 weeks time, depending upon how much run the lab is running at. So if you are becoming a donor, please register today here and take this message forward, and please only register if you're 100% committed, because once this is done, we're counting on you to save a life, and obviously the funds part is involved. We don't want to waste another donor's testing cost on somebody who is not sure or is not committed.
I'm just curious to know one more thing. Like
Please.
if I'm staying in India and I got to match in USA, how you will facilitate, whether
Your-
people are coming here to take my sample and
So as a donor,
okay.
we are your registry. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we get the donation from you
Okay.
and then transport it there
All right.
to the patient.
You don't need to do anything.
Physically, you don't have
You
to be
will not
taken.
Facilitate.
So the whole point is that as a registry, we will try and make it as simple for our donor as possible. So we explain that if you are a match for a patient in the US, you will have to go through this growth factor treatment, which is a 5-day treatment. Now, there are small side effects to it. We did explain all that. We don't like to keep anything in hiding. But most people, if they are healthy, they have no fevers. Most of them would go to work, have a normal life even those 5 days. They might have a slight headache and the doctor will say crocin le lo, but nothing more than that. So you will actually not even be taken, you will not be missing even your work for those 5 days. Unless, some very few people might get that fever. Most
Just
people
that
would not.
1 day of donation
Yeah,
is required.
it's only on that 1 day of donation where we will request you to take off from work, because that procedure can take, because all the medical tests have to be done, the actual donation has to be done. Then before we let you go back from the hospital, we have to make sure that you are absolutely well. So another set of tests will be run on you just to make sure that you have no problem. So that day you might be needed in the hospital from say 8 in the morning till 8 at night. That's a possibility. Not even an overnight spend at the hospital is required.
One thing more, ma'am.
Yeah.
Is an anemic person can be a donor?
Anemic.
Yeah, I'm an anemic. But I want to be donor.
I
so I just
know.
want to know.
So while you register, please promise us you're going to work on your HB counts. Because you're not becoming a donor the same day, right? This report's going to take 4 weeks to come back, and then you may not be a donor for like 5 years or maybe a year, 10 years.
Meantime, I can work upon.
Yes. Please
Now,
do work upon your
That's a
anemia.
problem we do have in India with women.
I know.
Because sadly 64% women in India are anemic. And I think because we are working in the blood disorder field, that's another program that Jasleen and I want to take on and do awareness for anemia amongst women, because most women don't even realize they are anemic. So that's another project that we seriously want to take on also. But right now, of course, stem cell is our main project. So yeah, for women that is a little bit of an
challenge.
issue, we
Yeah.
do face, and we have to keep counseling our donors that if you're anemic and you're aware of it, A, let us know in advance.
That's
And
what
B,
I'm telling
you have to make sure that you
You work
help
on it.
yourselves.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Any other
Is
questions?
there any casualty reported by the donor?
No. In the last 40 years of stem cell donation,
Now, if at all it happens, what's the risk coverage that you do for the donor?
No, sir,
If at all.
this procedure is so
I
so
can understand it's simple.
well taken care of.
In case.
In the history so far, there hasn't been no permanent side effect. Permanent side effect is this headache's not going to be with you after the donation or anything else, and no casualties whatsoever. So, looking at the figures and the number of donations we've done, seen, and been through, there nothing's going to happen. But you are under an insurance anyways. So when you do become a match, we'll take care of the paperwork. We'll tell you how it works and what's the insurance you're covered under and how it's going to be taken care of.
but the foundation doesn't take care of
No,
it.
we don't take care of that side otherwise.
Because
but
we are a
it's an
totally
international law.
not-for-profit
No, that is true, I
organization,
can
so it's
understand.
not possible.
Simply like in case of an eventuality or casualty or something like that. Do
That-
we have any provision?
In case is like hasn't happened so far.
But likely to happen?
But even with blood donation, platelet donation, I think the
No, that is.
literally.
So that is why it's a
percentage is 0.
So we are
it
going
is
to make
actually
yeah.
totally a voluntary.
Yeah. So if you think you have a health issue or something comes out in your blood reports or any other report, we will rule it off and we'll say, please don't donate. That's our responsibility and we take it on very seriously. Any other questions,
In any
please?
case, all your reports,
Yeah.
once we do the initial test, if you're a match for somebody and we do your initial tests and there is something that is showing up in your report, the transplant center will not accept
Yeah.
it either.
Okay.
Because the doctors want an absolutely healthy stem cell. So it will not even be acceptable by the transplant center itself.
Ma'am, what can be of the trust issue? Suppose I am donating something to you, and how can I trust you that whether you are really helping to the people or you are just doing the business?
Very interesting. I will cover that. We love those sort of questions. So once you donate your stem cells, say you've donated on 21st of February and it reaches the donor by 25th February because of corona conditions and transportation issues around the world, after the 365th day has passed of your donation and patient's transplant, not your donation, you have a choice to meet the patient and the family. Wherever they are in the world, we will arrange the donor-patient meet, and that's where you can see the person you've given life to. And you can ask them whether they had a transplant or not.
You will actually be meeting your twin brother or sister.
That's it. And it's a
Because
wonderful feeling.
The patient's DNA will change and become your DNA. So you will actually have an identical DNA with the patient. So a patient who's been through a stem cell transplant is called a chimera. Yeah. And chimera is from the Greek mythology, where it's the a lion head and a human
And human body.
And it is, so it actually the patient's DNA becomes your DNA, the same.
Please. I'll take that one first. Sorry.
But if the patient is in the last stages of cancer,
That's right.
so is it going to work?
So with stem cell transplant, the patient has to be in remission. So what happens is when there is a growth of cancer in the body, it's suppressed by radiations and chemotherapy. And the cancer cells have a personality that they sleep after all this. And they sleep for a longer time, sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years. So we call it a remission period. If the patient is in remission, the transplant can be done. But if they go back into, what is it called? I've forgotten the term, but if the cancer comes back, they're in a relapse, it's called a relapse. If the cancer comes back, then the transplant cannot happen. So the only time period is when you're in a remission, when the chemotherapies and the other drugs have suppressed the cancer cells, then we can do the stem cell transplant.
So just to let you
One
know, blood cancers, unlike other solid tumor cancers, don't have stages as such. because blood cancers are in your stem cell. So
It's all over the body.
affecting your whole body in any case. So treatments for blood cancers are different to the other. You might have people have pancreatic cancer or they have breast cancer. Those treatments are very different to
Stem cell transplant.
blood cancer treatments.
So is it going to work in bone marrow cancer?
Yeah, bone marrow cancer is a blood cancer.
So we have one, in my relatives, I have one patient, she's in fourth stage. So doctor has told that we cannot do anything. So is it going to help?
No,
be,
then she's not in
yeah.
remission anymore.
That means it's not in remission. That means the chemotherapy hasn't suppressed the cancer cells. That's why it's still there. And while those cells are, working around and they're active, we cannot do a stem cell
So
transplant.
I don't know where the treatments are going on, but there are many, many treatments today
Yeah.
for blood cancer. So there are other, besides stem cell transplant, there now, they have different treatments also. But sadly in India, these treatments are very expensive. So a lot of people can't even afford them. And then they're not available everywhere easily. So, that means you have to uproot yourself and go to another place and get the treatment done there. So it becomes very, very, not only emotionally traumatic, though it is for the family, but, it's a huge financial burden. It's a huge burden in every which way. So a lot of people sadly can't get these treatments, but there are treatments available, and it is always advisable to try and catch it as soon as possible so that one can make use of those treatments.
Next question.
We are happy to counsel
Yeah.
even for treatments available, where one should go, how one should approach it. So if ever there's anybody in the family who, I hope it never happens, but if ever there is, if you contact us, we are able to guide you where to go, which are the best places, all that we will be able to give you some counseling on that.
Yeah.
Hanji.
Ma'am, my perspective was same, if one part is donation, the second part is where a receiver or a patient in India can approach. Have you any contacts in hospitals or any channel you have established?
Yes.
Here, what is the channel? Can you tell us so that we can propagate it?
So we are in touch. So today there are over 40 transplant centers in India. 10 years ago, maybe there were hardly 10. When my son had it, there were very few. There were hardly 10 centers in the whole country doing stem cell transplant, and that too unrelated stem cell transplants. Stem cell transplants within the family are much easier, but stem cell transplant of an unrelated donor is, more technically difficult, complicated. So there are 40 stem cell centers. Yeah, we are in touch. We work with All India Medical Institute in Delhi. We work with Fortis. We work with Max. We work with PGI. There are lots of. We'll be able to guide you. We won't recommend, because those are very personal choices, but we can guide you, surely.
So if you go on to WMDA website, you'll see the number of registries India has. All the transplant centers know that India has 4 or 5 registries, and they will contact us when they require a match. Yeah? Any other?
The same name like bone marrow registry.
The Arjanveer Foundation. That's it. Hanji sir.
Yeah, before I ask you a very simple question, so I heartily congratulate you for whatever the job you're doing. I would call it a noble job.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
So my question is very clear. I just want to know how many lives have been saved till now, just to encourage more and more people to join you.
That's
Since
right.
the organization has started, or since the registries have started?
Yeah, since the registry has started, we've, for overseas, we've assisted 4 transplants already. So we contacted the local registry where the donor is, and then have brought in the stem cells, and the treatments have happened. So we are not a part of the treatment, we are only where the stem cells are to be organized and brought in. And so far I think we are over 20 patients we've saved. Thank you.
We were talking about statistics. There are about 35 million donors worldwide.
Yep.
And in India, we don't even have 500,000. We barely reached 500,000 now.
This year,
Barely reached.
yes.
So in the US, a white American has 70% chances of finding a match. Okay? The others, whether they are, you know, African Americans, whether they are Spanish, Latin Americans, or whether they are Indian Americans or Chinese Americans, only 20 to 25% of them find matches. Germany, being such a small country and a small population, has almost 10 million donors of its own.
Yes.
And that is why a lot of us, especially North Indian Punjabis, find donors in Germany because of the Aryan Connect. But the sad thing is that when we bring the stem cell from Germany, the cost escalates. So even though a person may have found a stem cell match, he may not be able to go through the transplant because he cannot afford the treatment. The treatment cost could escalate by almost 40 lakhs immediately, just to bring the stem cell from Germany.
Yep.
So the importance of having a robust registry within the country is of utmost importance. That's the only way we'll be able to make this treatment more and more affordable for our own people. Our transplant centers are not that expensive. It's the cost of getting the stem cell from overseas. If the same stem cell has to come from the US, the cost would go up by more than 50 lakhs.
Yep.
So, you know, it's it's critical that we increase the numbers in our country.
A cost of transportation, if you are a donor, you donate in Ludhiana and we have to take your stem cells to a transplant center in Delhi, the cost is going to be only literally 10,000-15,000, not more than that. Even if it's saved in an ice box, the stem cells. But like I said, the last one we did from Thailand, we brought in the cells and you're not going to believe the cost of those cryopreserved boxes which had come. It's unimaginable that we have to borrow and then we have to pay for it. We have to beg for somebody to donate and then we have to pay for it. That amount which could have just been the total cost of the whole transplant itself. So we need a registry for our people here so that they can be saved easily with less money involved in it. Any other questions, please?
ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਥੋੜਾ ਬਰੀਫ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਔਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਾਊਂਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਿਉਂ ਬਣਾਈ, ਕੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਪੈ ਗਈ, ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਸ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਟਰਸਟ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਬਣੇਗਾ, ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਕੀਤਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਦੱਸ ਦਿਓਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਲਗਜ਼ਰੀਅਸ ਲਾਈਫ ਨੂੰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਵਾਲੀ ਫਾਊਂਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਿਉਂ ਬਣਾਈ ਹੈ.
Yeah, Simyanti will start first.
So, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਹੀ ਸੀ that ਅਰਜੁਨ ਮੇਰਾ ਬੇਟਾ ਸੀ. At the age of 24, ਉਹਨੂੰ blood cancer detect ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ. 2 ਸਾਲ ਉਹਦੀ ਟ੍ਰੀਟਮੈਂਟ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਰਹੀ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਰਿਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਚਲੇ ਗਏ, ਪਰ ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਨਰਿਲੇਟਿਡ ਮੈਚਸ ਦਾ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਪਲਾਂਟ ਘੱਟ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ. ਡਾਕਟਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਪਲਾਂਟ ਹਾਲੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ. ਸੋ ਦੇ ਸੈਡ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਵਿਲ ਵੇਟ, let us see, he should stay in remission because his reports showed good credibility that he will stay in remission. But he was not in remission for even 4 months. Within 4 months he relapsed. And then it became critical that we had to put him in remission again, which means very, very, very high doses of chemotherapy he had to go through. And chemotherapy, is a very nasty treatment. It creates so many complications, so much of, ill health, other problems.
It's been buzzing. It's Auntie's phone.
So, we were not finding, and then in India there were no facilities. There was only one registry which used to work in Chennai. They had started in 2011. I'm talking about March of 2012, and in 2011 they had started and they had about 10,000 registered donors. The government of India had started a registry in All India Medical Institute and had pumped in a lot of money. So All India Medical Institute had a membership with WMDA, and they had about 2,000 registered donors. But they, being a government organization, they were not motivated enough to take it forward. Nothing was happening there. So when we went to actually look for a match, they said you go to All India Medical Institute and ask them to do a search on WMDA for Arjun. At that time, the worldwide registry at that time had about 16 million donors. So we went to All India Medical Institute and we met the head of the department. She was a very warm and friendly person, and she completely, understood our plight. And we were not the only people sitting in her office. There were many other families who were looking for searches. And she opened her computer and she said, let me see if I can do the searches. And once she opened her computer and logged on to the WMDA site, she gets a message saying that you have not paid your yearly subscription, so you cannot run searches anymore. That was the plight. So as a mother or as parents, my husband and I, we had nowhere to go. Where do we search for a match? So we had contacted centers in Australia because we had family living in Australia. We had contacted centers living in the US because we had family living there. We actually found 2 matches in Australia. We were ready to go there and we wanted to pay for the treatment, but Australia has a different medical system, there. So they refused to take him on as a patient. They said, you put him in remission in India and only then will we take him on as a patient. The doctors over here felt that if we were going to go in for a transplant, we should be there already, because as soon as he goes into remission, the period is going to be so short that immediately they will need to do the transplant. We won't have then the time to travel and take him there. Because after that kind of chemotherapy, he would have been very weak, very vulnerable. Travel would have been a problem. So Australia said, no, we will not take him as a patient. So then we went off to the US. But unfortunately, we lost too much time by then. So the new treatments that they put him on, they were considered very good treatments at that time, but they didn't work. And that's it. So while all this was going on, Arjun was a 26-year-old young man. He had done enough study on what the stem cell is, what the treatment is all about. He understood everything. So it had become his life's mission. He says, Mom, how can it be that, there's no facility to find a match in this country? We have to do something about it. It had become his mission and his dream.
Great.
And he had started planning, he had started talking to people, he had actually designed all the logos and the pamphlets, everything already while in hospital. That this is what, once I get well, this is what I'm going to do. And he truly believed that he was going to get well. He never ever for a moment thought that he was not going to get well. So of course, we lost him in October of 2012. We were shattered. It took us a few years to emotionally pick ourselves up. And it was only when I met this young lady that she pushed me and said, Auntie, you have to live his dream. You have to live it. So,
Yeah,
thanks to
very,
her.
no.
Really, that she pushed me and made me go through it.
I have a very interesting story to add this to. So I think after Arjun, obviously, family was going through a great trauma anyway. And I came into the scene in 2016. I came to India to look for a match for my cousin as well. He lives in Canada. I'm from England. I'm an accountant by profession. Got nothing to do with medicals, but now we're involved in it. His doctor told us to go back to the pent we belong to. We'll find matches there. His surname is Deol. So he said, find out the places where Deols are and then do their testing, you will find a match. We did run series of testing before even we had met. We'd paid for it, done it, and everything happened. And then we'd been meeting families who had problems. So I kept coming back to India to look for more matches, to do more testing, and do everything we possibly could to save him. And interestingly, one of the family's donor was auntie's cousin, Arjun's uncle. So they had done tests in 2010-11. That database was somewhere in the world where this family's kid became a match. So we got this inspiration from captain's, we call him captain because he's retired from army, his donation that we must start, because if we can find match that quickly, that near, anything is possible. And from that point, we've started this organization. We've kept each other like joint, and we're trying to do more work. And personally, this gives us a lot more satisfaction, a lot more peace. We sleep at night very well, think something to return back to the planet, to this nature where we've come from. And from that point onwards, I think we've not looked back. And in Hindi, they say, Log jurte gaye, karwa banta gaya. So we have, one of them is Sargi, who's brought us here, and we are meeting all of you. Like this, we've met fantastic people, amazing human beings who, I didn't have no base in Punjab, though. I was born at Jhansi. Both of us are from army background anyway. And we've never lived here or studied here, but now this feels like home, more like home. And we are trying to do everything we can in northern India mostly, because that's where we can reach. Any other questions at all? Anybody, even if it's a small one, you're shy of asking.
Yeah, we are happy to answer as many questions.
I think that lady is giggling there. She may have something. It's okay, you can ask us later. And if you want to register, we're here for another hour or so, I think, Sergey. Yeah, you can just fill the forms and give us your cheek swab. It's very easy. Cheek swab is, I'll take you through it again. This is like an earbud. This is going to be rubbed on the membrane of your cheek, so it doesn't hurt at all. That's about it. Thank you.
I think Jay can help with the cheek swabs.
Yes. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
ਬੁਖਾਰ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਰਿਆ ਕਰਦੇ
Wow.
ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਖੜ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਖੜਦੇ ਹੋ ਸੋ ਹੋਪਫੁਲੀ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਮਿਲੀ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਥੋੜੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਮੋਟੀਵੇਟ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਹੋਵਾਂਗੇ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਨੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਆ ਉਹ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਕਰੀਏ ਤੇ ਜਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਰਜਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰਵਾਈਏ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਰੱਖਣ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹੀ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਉਹ ਅਰੇਂਜ ਕਰੀਏ ਤੇ ਰਜਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਇੱਕ ਅਲੱਗ ਤੋਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਕੈਂਪ ਲਗਾਈਏ ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਮੈਡਮ ਸਿਮੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੇ ਜਸਲੀਨ ਗਰਚਾ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਚੋਂ ਟਾਈਮ ਸਪੇਅਰ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਤੇ ਇੰਨੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਲਾਈਫ ਸੇਵਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹ ਲਓ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਬਰਥ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ